Hey everyone, and welcome back to Season 2 of Professor's Play, the show where you can get just a pixel of deep thinking with your mostly nonsensical video game discussions. I am Professor Phil Chavot, he's Professor John Adams, and he's Professor Brandon West, and together we are professors who play video games. This is episode 19, and today we are going to continue and finalize, thankfully, our discussion on Harvest Moon, The Winds of Anthos. Before we get into that, though, I'm going to do the customary John and Brandon. How are you two doing? John first.
I'm wearing my winter farming gear.
You are.
It's like my summer farming gear, but it has a sweater.
I am wearing just my farming gear, which is what the game doesn't let you customize for a very long time.
I was going to say, hey, you forget the adamantine needles that you had to pull out of the ground.
Yeah, no, the adamantine needles apparently break every time you use them, so you got to get more every time. That's a deep cut that we're going to discuss later in the episode. Brendan, how are you?
Yeah, I'm here.
Finals week.
Great. Yeah, we're in finals week, folks, and it's taking its toll. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, definitely.
So, with that, let's get into it. As a refresher, Harvest Moon games are farming and social simulators, right? With the emphasis usually being on upgrading your farm and from like falling apart to thriving.
Yep.
However, it is worth remembering that, as we discussed last week, this Harvest Moon series may be called Harvest Moon, but it's actually a new series that started in 2014, unrelated to the 1996 or 2, I forget exactly when it was, series. That series is not called Story of Seasons. This series is a new series called Harvest Moon from the original American producers of the original series. We're not going to get into it again. Please listen to the first episode for a bigger explanation on that.
It's interesting, though.
It is interesting.
Yeah.
So although it uses the Harvest Moon name, it is a slight departure from the originals. If you've played like the SNES, N64, and GameCube versions, this is slightly different, and that's on purpose. They're trying to put a spin on their own gameplay style, and that's where we kind of hit a hitch, or several hitches. Because for what it's worth, I've read the Story of Seasons about the Story of Seasons as well. I've been doing a lot of research on this over the last week and a half or so, and like informal research in terms of looking at Reddit and reviews for different games and games of the past, and it seems that Story of Seasons, the franchise, has not been doing well either, which is again why Stardew Valley ate everyone's lunch all of a sudden, right? So to preface today's episode, our commentary is mostly going to be negative. I think it's fair to say that this is the worst game we've played in Professor's Play's storied history.
In their defense, they said they wanted to make the game different, and it is different. It is different. But I agree. This is the first game that we've played that we don't like unanimously.
Yes. And it's more than don't like, and we'll get into that, but we also don't like it.
Yes.
I checked around with most of the reviews, and it was hard to find reviews for this game because most major outlets did not review it. And when I say most, I mean all. The biggest outlet that I found reviewing this game was Nintendo Life, which is we review pretty much every quote-unquote first party Nintendo game, right?
Right.
Most people are awarded this game a 6 or a 7, which usually means just about, mediocre.
It's okay.
Okay. But most of the people that gave it 7s talked about how it's a 7 because it is a step in the right direction, which scares us a little bit.
We will disagree with that.
No, I think I can't disagree with that because I don't know what the other games are like.
That's
but
fair.
I don't think this should be praised. Anyway, with all that being said, though, if you like this game or want to play it, please don't feel bad about it. About that, none of us are necessarily farming social sim aficionados, though we play it every once in a while. And playing on a time crunch, I don't think is in the busiest time of the semester. Kind of.
You're allowed to like what you like.
Yes. And I don't think that we played it in the best timing and all that kind of stuff. But we do have a critical eye for things because this is literally my field of study, right? So I pick up on stuff, and it's my job to analyze these things. But I will say this isn't a broken game. It's not an ugly game, right? Now, honestly, I'm not entirely sure it's a bad game from a functioning perspective. Everything in the game works fine enough. It's mostly how these things are set up.
It does seem well coded.
Yeah. The design itself of what it's trying to do that we have issues with, and that's what we're going to discuss today. So it's our job to be critical here, but if you like this game, that's awesome. We understand where you're coming from because we see some of the potential in some places, but hopefully you can understand where we're coming from as well.
We feel bad because we like video games, and so we usually just like to say how cool and awesome they are.
Yeah.
And today might not be that way.
Yes.
But
With that, we're going to get right into our one-word expression reviews, and mine is, this is not a farming simulator.
No, it is not.
That's not one word.
Expression.
Expression.
One word / expression.
Sentence.
Well, no, you got to do one word, then one expression.
Short thoughts.
Not hyphen farming expression. This is not a farming simulator. Expression. Get all the way off my back about this. So I did not. I say it's not a farming simulator because I did not farm for the last 5 or so hours of this game, which is like,
wow.
What is that, like 15% of the game? 20% of the game?
Yeah.
I mined those entire 5 hours basically. I slept and mined. And from hour 20 to 30, so I finished in 36 hours. From hour 20 to 30, I only farmed tomatoes, watermelons, corn, and grass. Watermelons and tomatoes because they are the most efficient stamina boosters in the game, which we'll talk about later. Corn and grass for my animals.
Yep.
Yeah. I did not love this game, but I will say I wish I hadn't played it on a time crunch. I wouldn't have played it on not on a time crunch. I wouldn't have played it on my own time. But I wish I had not a time crunch to see what it was like, because sometimes it felt like the characters were reminding you of things I did earlier that day.
Yeah.
As if the game is expecting you to come back in a few days, which is again not the best design in terms of storytelling.
Right.
Right. So the kids have to account for all these things, which is what I tell my students when they're building their games. It's like you have to account for players coming back in 2 years, or for players doing the same everything in one day.
Right.
Which is hard. Most games do it though. This game did not very well. John, what about you?
Well, before we get to me, let's talk about time, because I think time is really interesting. You said it took 36 hours?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I finished it in 34 hours, 35 hours specifically, which is important because we beat the speedrun record.
Well, there's no speedrun record.
There's no speedrun record. So I just want to say right off the bat that we're going to try to upload this online at some point, but I'm going to claim it right here that we currently, at a very standard playthrough with no rushing at all, hold the speed record.
I mean, I rushed a little because I wanted it to be over with, but I agree with you. So yeah, I try to submit our runs to speedrunning.com, but they require a full video, which we don't have. So I'm trying to talk to the moderators of the channel to be like, hey, we don't have the video, we have the timestamps. If you want to take ours out when someone with video uploads there, that's fine, but currently there is no uploads there.
It would be so easy to beat us because we didn't try.
As of this time of recording.
But as of this time of recording, Professor's Play
we
holds the world record
the
for
first and second times. Yeah.
For speed running Winds of Anthos. At just basically barely completing it.
Sorry, guys. I died back at the start line.
Brandon finished it faster than anyone else. He played an hour and a half and was done with it.
It's like
I was gonna make that joke too. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
No, it's all good.
Sorry, my one word review. My one word review is that this game expression feels like it's corporate. That's the one word. It feels like it was developed by a corporation. You know how every now and then you see a movie and you're like, oh, some producer got involved and tried to do 6 things at once, and that's why this is the way it is.
Because they make money, not because they want it to.
Because they make money, not because they. That's what this game feels like. This game very much feels like they were like, gotta revitalize the Harvest Moon franchise. How are we gonna do this? Let's look around. We're gonna include all these elements, half-baked, and not have a plan, and the game will just be a mess of half-baked executed elements. And so it feels very without a soul. It feels like there wasn't anybody on this project that was working that was very passionate, and I'm sure that's not true, devs, but it feels like the game wasn't designed around a vision.
Yeah, and again, we don't know what the lead time was on this or what their budget was, but the problem isn't the developers that coded this game, it's
whoever the designer.
The overall thought process behind how the game loop would work, I think. But yeah, if speaking of half-baked, if this was a Great British Baking Show bake, we'd say that it's underproven.
It's underproofed. Yep.
Raw.
And
has a soggy bottom.
Absolutely unacceptable.
I believe this is poison. I don't think you eat it.
I'm not going to eat this, but if I was, I would tell you that this is not exactly how we do things. Thank you so much.
So John also beat the game. He finished in about 35 hours or whatever it was. He says here in my script, I did not feel any urge to continue it. Which is, when I finished the game, I didn't have the map unlocked, and I played for another hour, 40 minutes to unlock the full map because I was annoyed by it.
Right.
And then I was like, man, I guess I could really make my farm now and have my towns,
You
become
could.
amazing, and then I was like, or I could go back to playing the games I enjoy.
Yep.
And I did that.
Right.
Yep.
Brandon, what about you?
One word review. What? One sentence review. This feels like a game designed by committee, and they made a camel. One sound review.
There are camels in the game, and they can run in the desert.
They can.
Oh my
Which is valuable.
I hate this game.
Yep.
Yeah, like I said, they made a camel. It's an adventure game that doesn't work as an adventure game. It's a farming game that doesn't work as a farming game. It's a dating sim that doesn't work as a dating sim. This game's got like a major identity crisis, and at this point, I almost wish they would have just like fully embraced that and made it some surreal experience where the game changes genre every hour, and so you move from
Meta.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be intentional, and I think this was very unintentional.
Exactly. Yeah.
What was it? We were talking about the Pokemon DLC today, John and I, and he said like, I think you're perceiving nuance where there isn't none. And I said, no, there is nuance. It's just not purposeful.
It's not purposeful nuance. It's not intentional nuance.
Right.
So Brandon here, he only played about 2 hours of this game, but because he end of the semester didn't want to play all that kind of stuff. Didn't feel like playing because the game really doesn't pull you in, especially with that tutorial.
I would say it actively pushed me away. Did I mention Doc's facial expressions last episode?
You did mention Doc's facial expressions.
What was the thing that I saw today and I was like, this is why the facial expressions creep me out. It's because it looks like Apom.
Oh.
Oh my god, it does.
And
yeah.
I have always hated Apom is like my bottom 5 Pokemon of all time. And it's because the face creeps me out and also angers me. Yeah, because I'm like, you little mischievous little thing. You know exactly what you're doing and you're weird about it.
It's supposed to be mischievous. I think it comes off as weird.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. Doc's facial expressions make him, her, they. Yeah, it makes them look like a serial killer.
Yeah, it looks like Apom, who, like, if you ever watch the Detective Pikachu movie,
is
scary,
terrifying.
Yeah,
right.
Brendan says here. On the other hand, though, I did not feel like I want to play this game. The first 90 minutes convinced me of that, and made the prospect of playing the rest feel like a chore. And what I'll say to you is that you do a lot of chores in this game, and they never not feel like chores.
Yep.
They always feel like chores.
Right. Yeah. Whereas, like in Baldur's Gate. Hey, you gotta go fight the dragon. Oh no.
I think I'm not gonna say that's an unfair comparison, but Baldur's Gate did win Game of the Year, and this was
true.
Like in Mars, if Game of the Year was Earth, basically.
Yeah, true. Well,
but that is a fair comparison in terms of like one game that has its gameplay loop feel like it's a game, not a chore.
Yep.
Yeah. And there are plenty of other games, like, let's go much older, Civilization 5.
Yes.
Oh no, I've got to mass my artillery and take out this rival civ.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah, I think that in these games, like lifestyle sims, even Persona series, right? You're like going back and forth between different confidants or people, and you're like, I have to go here to like farm, and I have to go here buy this thing, and I have to go to this other place to like whatever, watch a movie. It feels like you're maximizing your schedule, but it doesn't feel like you're doing chores.
Well, or even if it feels like chores, I'm actually fine with a game that gives chores, but the chores have to have a payoff.
Yes.
Right? Like,
yeah.
I'm going to the movies, and yes, movie is only walk to this location, press A. But at the movies, then I get special scenes, and I get to learn more things about the people, and like there's depth to the story, and this game, I'm mining rocks that I can do more things so I can mine more rocks.
Yeah, I think the best gameplay we can compare this with is like something like Monster Hunter, which is really satisfying to like kill a monster, get better gear, kill a bigger monster, get better gear, and you kind of keep going. And they create a good gameplay loop in terms of it's always interesting to like find better monsters and expand your arsenal, that kind of stuff, right? I don't get to that gameplay loop, but I see it. I think that's kind of what was happening here, but without the big payoffs.
And like Monster Hunter is still a game of skill.
Yeah.
So like you need these weapons so that you can then go and fight these cool monsters that have like cool timing mechanics. They're big boss fights, right?
And if you don't have the skill, you can have the weapons but not kill it.
Right. This would be like if Monster Hunter was go press A, kill monster. Monster's dead. Now go back, make more weapons. Now press A, kill monster.
Press B this time to kill monster.
Nobody's playing that game, right? Like it's missing the payoff. It's missing the reward for doing that.
Right, and the thing is, in Persona, all these things felt like there was a progress mechanic.
Yes.
So I'm like, oh, it's raining? Cool. Gonna go study in the library. That way I get, like, extra knowledge. That way I can do better on the exam. That way I can keep leveling on my relationship with this character. Right?
Yeah,
So, like, it all tied together, and there was plenty of little dopamine hits in there.
It's all connected.
Right.
In this game, nothing's connected.
I
Even though they keep telling you, like, it's all connected.
They're
like,
telling you
is
it's
it?
connected.
Is it, though?
Yeah.
I didn't feel a lot of dopamine hits in this game. And partially, admittedly, that might be kind of like a patience thing, where it's like, all right, cool, what's your current thing? Well, grow some tulips. Okay.
It's going to take 4 days.
That'll take 3 days or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's like,
Cool.
yeah,
cool.
so in the meantime,
Yeah, you can like,
go fishing.
Go fishing. And
is there like a dragon I can go fight? Like,
I don't
what's
have
the...
enough turnips to fight the dragon yet.
Oh, gosh.
So we'll get into a little bit of the how does mechanics work now. And first, we're going to talk about farming, which again is supposed to be the main mechanic of this game, as far as we understand it, but wasn't.
No.
So first thing I want to say is throughout this, we don't have a lot of official quote unquote pixels of depth in this episode. It was hard to bring these in as much, but we do have a lot of. What I did was I looked pretty much every official review I could find, and I have quotes from the reviews here.
That's cool.
Which I'm going to intersperse what we're talking about, so it doesn't sound like it's just us being like.
So it's a literature
rude.
review.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, first of all, the plots in the farms are real small.
Real small.
Yeah.
For the first farm, it's a 5x6, and that's not a lot, especially if you consider this as a farming simulator. So you're supposed to be growing dozens of the same crop or different crops all the time, right?
Right.
The only sizable one is the one on the Goddess Spring, which is the last plot you unlock, and that one's admittedly very large. I think that one's like a 20 by 8 or something like that,
Right.
or maybe like 15 by 8. It's very large, but that one's literally the last one you unlock. And once you unlock you unlock the goddess, like because the goddess comes back to life.
Right. Gets
and
full size.
Gets full size. She's no longer chibi, and she confusingly this time they're able to stop the eruption without having to put up walls.
They say their power is fresher and newer,
Sure.
and the eruption isn't as bad.
Sure. I feel like they say the eruption is just as bad. Anyway, they're able to stop it without the walls.
They don't need the walls.
So you are able to get into the Goddess Spring area, which after the game, and then you can like move your house there if you want.
But it's after the credits.
It's after you roll credits, and you can start farming there. And it's a large plot, but you don't get to that until you beat the game.
Well, and one of the issues with this game is that like you don't get to play the game until you beat this game.
You don't get to play what Harvest Moon
Should be.
was, or should be until you beat it.
Until you beat this game, which would require me to again invest another 20 or so hours in it to play Harvest Moon, which is great, but I wanted to play Harvest Moon,
Yeah.
right?
I already tried for 30 hours.
I tried for 35 hours to
Yeah.
play Harvest Moon.
Um,
You gave me ways to not
Which
play.
is 35 hours you could have spent, like, finishing Harvest Moon.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
So, I would also say that the plots aren't that big, but especially in the beginning and at the end when you stop farming, you typically don't even have enough seeds, though. Like, you have to go
No.
actively looking for more.
You have to
take
spend days
out
to look for seeds.
enough seeds to plant.
Right.
Right. And this is from a website called Video Chums. Mary Billington said about the farming. The farming areas are very small, although there are a handful of them. You can't build a huge estate like you can in other games in the series, which made me miss that element. So we talked about in the first episode.
Right. That Harvest Moon is built around an upgrade system, and this game really doesn't have the upgrade system.
The
A little
upgrade
bit with the
system's replaced
sprinklers,
by
maybe.
You moving.
You
right?
moving to different locations.
Yeah. So I have here, this is not a farming game example 1, this is from Nintendo Life, Kate Gray. Compared to mining and exploration, farming and animal husbandry take quite a backseat. Most of the story quests require materials found in the mines, with the occasional onion or turnip here and there.
Yep.
So you would be forgiven for thinking that the crop growing was all about making money. Nope. The crops sell for a pittance, and fishing is vastly more lucrative. So cooking then. Well, the stamina meter in the game empties pretty quickly, it's true, but the food recipes don't really get good until mid-game. So it's just better to scarf 20 apples.
Yep.
So what is the point of farming then? This is still from Kate Gray. We have yet to really find a compelling reason to farm.
There you go.
Which is
That's how I feel too.
a damning indictment of which again we talked about this. They don't put their genre in the website or on the Nintendo website, but they do say you're gonna do a lot of farming in this game. And I don't think that's necessarily true, right?
Fishing is by far more lucrative. So the golden carp, did you guys catch one of those?
No, I became my stamina was I had like 25 hearts, and I just took like 4 or 5 days to mine every month or something, and I just
in the mines, those pools that you hit on the 10th levels
Yeah.
have big fish in them, and when you catch them, they're golden carp, and they sell for $8,000.
Oh, that's nice.
And so there is no reason monetarily to seek anything else other than golden
That
carp.
and the mines themselves, and the carps in the mines.
Yep.
Great.
Mining moon.
Mining Moon. So it's also hard to do. We talked about this. Like it's hard to place your pickaxe and to water the right crops and to like
To walk and not fall
walk
down.
and not fall. Yeah, all that kind of stuff. It also lacks nuance in terms of the crop. So there are a lot of variations which you can perceive as good or bad.
Right.
Because like it's in one hand it's cool to have like 4 different kinds of tomatoes. On the other hand, it's I don't necessarily need.
There's not a reason for those.
You don't need that.
Yeah.
But all crops are in a like 3-day cycle for when they need water.
Right.
And so what determines the health of your crop
Right.
is whether it's protected from the elements, and this is some research I did,
With a fence.
with the fence,
Yeah.
and whether you water it and fertilize it every 3 days.
Right.
However, some crops, like grass, grow in 3 days.
Right.
So it's ready on the morning of the 4th day, which means that when it would have withered, it is already ready, so you never have to actually water grass if you don't want to. Which feels like an oversight for a farming game. They should put individual timings on these things.
Yeah.
Well,
You
yeah.
see what I'm saying?
Well, and in past Harvest Moons, I know I keep comparing it, the buildings and stuff were part of your farming plot as well. So when you went and got a new building built, they would say, all right, it's going to take up a 3x6 square, put it somewhere, and then you had to choose, all right, do I want a barn here? Do I want a grain silo? Do I want like a solar grow house or a greenhouse? And you had to like accommodate that with the farm. Here, it all comes
Yeah.
pre-made, pre-established. And so, again, we've taken out these elements
Yeah.
of farming to include less farming elements.
Yes.
And so that really leads me to the question, like, what is the gameplay loop?
Fetch quests,
Fetch quests.
which is the next thing we're going to get to. So, again, not a farming game, but a mining and fetching quest game. So, first of all, we're going to talk about mining in a little bit.
Okay, that's fair.
So, the way mining works is probably the worst tangential, quote-unquote, mechanic I've ever played in a game.
Right.
Because, and I would say this, even people that like this game are like, the mining is frustrating, right? Even all the reviews that are like, I like the fact that the mines are procedure generated and have different things. It is very frustrating to mine because of how the stamina works, and also how the rocks and RNG for that works. But John, you said here, mining is the bane of this game.
It is so awful. And partially because they've made it such a central component.
Yeah.
Because if you recall from the first episode, I said that mining really was a side quest. You used to be able to buy these materials. You shouldn't have had to like go in the mines. And if you went in the mines, it was supposed to be something that you did because you just had extra energy at the end of your day.
Yeah.
You got all your farming stuff done by noon, and you're like, well, I've got 3 hearts left. Let's explore the mines, right? They were also so much more locked around, like, these gems appear on this level, and the rock mechanic wasn't a thing,
Oh, the rock mechanic is the worst.
right? So
And by that he means like you have pretty much it might be bigger than this, but like every time you swing your pickaxe or your hammer
in the mine,
in the mine, you have about 50% chance of rocks falling, and then they fall in like a 3x3 grid.
randomized 3x3 grid.
So they could fall on you, they could not, and it pretty much every time you swing your pickaxe, it could happen. So I've had a situation where I had rocks fall 6 swings in a row,
Right.
kind of thing, right? And it felt like the deeper you got, the more common the rocks falling.
and in
were.
the more advanced mine, the volcanic mine definitely had more rocks.
Yeah, and because this game, and we talked about this game doesn't have a mechanic for fast movement or for dodging or for camera coming around fast.
Yeah, or even like movement in a reverse direction.
Reverse direction, right? When you move your analog stick in the opposite direction of where you're going, you face sideways because
Right.
it's not sensitivity is dulled down even if you turn it off all the way. So that dodging these rocks, because you get a auditory cue and you have about a second, but often it takes more than a second to move your character out of the way.
So then rocks fall and you get
just-
hit, and you lose a heart
You lose a heart, and hearts are a whole heart is a lot.
because most food restores half a heart.
Yes.
And so it feels like this mechanic wasn't made for fun. This mechanic was made, like many things in this game, to slow down the rate of player progression. I think if
Yes.
you removed every nonsense mechanic from this game, you could easily half the length of the game.
Yes. And I think, yeah, like I said before, it was made to inconvenience you, right? Not to, like, actually provide skill or challenge. Because
Right.
it's fully randomized in a way that you can't alter.
Or predict.
Or predict. So, because at one point I was like, every time I swing, I'm going to move, but that's not good either because you might move to where the rock is actually coming.
Right.
Right. So at one point I just stopped moving. I just let it hit me. I was like, it's easy for me to just eat a tomato.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a difference here between RNG as like a game element
Yes.
and RNG as a inconvenience.
And that's a pixel depth we're going to get into today. So RNG stands for random number generator, right? Which is not exclusive to video games, but it's essentially a what's this called? Here it is. It's a calculation or a variable that you need for programs that substitute for some stuff that you can't calculate before it happens.
Right.
Right? So it influences and determines a result. It's similar to rolling a dice. We just played Baldur's Gate. We talked about that. That's the RNG.
Dice are
right?
a random number generator.
Dice are literally a random number generator. Right? They'll generate a random number because you threw them. But similar to dice, you can stack the odds. So you can roll 2 dice. You can roll a dice that has a base of 4.
Right.
You can do all these kind of things. So you do that with like buffs, right? So in Baldur's Gate, you can roll 2 dice. You can roll, you can get debuffs where if you are stunned or whatever, your rolls have disadvantage.
You can add numbers to the end of the dice
Exactly.
rolls. Pokemon works the same way.
Yes.
So Pokemon, everything
all
is behind the scenes.
turn-based. All combat is random number generators.
But the random number generators rolling, but the random number generators there are aspects of the game.
Yes.
There are things where they're saying, all right, you have a 50-50% chance this is going to happen. But if you play the game well, and you play the game smart, either strategically or action-wise, there are ways to mitigate this, right? And games that don't have ways to mitigate the random number generators usually have ways to mitigate it through skill. They're like, okay, but we're going to give you fast reaction times on the controller, and you have to be good enough to avoid or dodge these things.
Right. So it's like the difference between Elden Ring or Baldur's Gate.
Right.
Elden Ring, you got to time it really well, so it's skill. Baldur's Gate, you plan your Karlach build to have reckless
Yeah, they're both
attack.
skill, right? It's one is like fast twitch
Strategic skill versus
Yeah.
tactical skill.
Fair.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
But what happens is that if you don't build a game around one of these capabilities, all right, the characters are going to mitigate the RNG through one of these 2 ways. What you end up with is an RNG that isn't part of the game. It's just slowing things down. It's just an inconvenience. It's the same as if I said, all right, you're going to turn on your Nintendo Switch system, and then we're going to download it with a boot time between 1 and 20. And it's going to change every time. And you're like, why? And they're like,
Because games.
because if you don't, then we can say that you spent longer on your Nintendo Switch. Yeah. And you're like, that doesn't, but it could start in a second, right? And they're like, I mean, it could. but then would you spend as long playing it? You're like, but am I playing it, or am I just spending a long time watching my Nintendo Switch boot up between 1 and 16 seconds?
And I think is like when they have stuff like Baldur's Gate or Elden Ring or Persona and things like that you have random number or Pokemon based on damage or based on your build or your skill, like in terms of like fast twitch gameplay, right, with your hands. That's when you create skill and challenging the possibility of creating building skill, because the enemies can also take advantage of that kind of stuff.
Right.
So enemies will try to like grease you, or they'll stun you, or they'll hit you in a specific spot to make their RNG or their random number generator have better odds.
And even
Right.
then, the existence...
And you have to balance that out.
Right, it's a chess game.
Exactly. In this game, it is, you need a certain amount of randomness, right? That's how it works in game design. But pure randomness, which is essentially 50-50, or whatever the odds are in a way that I can't change them, you just create busy work and a grind that is a negative experience.
Right.
And this is from Frank Purvey in The Magic of Games. And essentially it's like, if whatever happens in this mine is going to happen whether I swing this axe or not,
Right.
then it's got nothing to do with me, and I just hate it.
Which is okay in some senses, like gambling. Because at the end of gambling, we might not know and if we're going to win it or not. But at the end,
that's not a. It's not a game. It's a game of chance.
It's a game of chance,
Yeah.
and that gambling mechanic is tied to an incredible reward, and it's meant to like fire your dopamine receptors to say, "Wow, this is really great that I'm getting such a big reward." This also doesn't do that.
No.
There's no reward for you dodging the rocks other than maybe
not losing a full heart.
a time. This is
and
like
also-
you walk into a casino, spin the roulette, and they're like, "All right, if this doesn't land on black, you got to sit here for another 5 minutes. And if it does land on black, it gets to land. If it does land on black, it gets to land on black."
It's like cool. So
why am I going?
what?
here?
Yeah, when we talk like if done well, like random number generation is like makes or breaks games. This is why obviously people love Pokemon, but like the reason so many people play Pokemon competitively is because they have very very finely tuned random number generators.
Balanced very well
Yeah.
between intent and random number.
Yes.
Well, card games, Magic is the same way,
Yeah.
right? It's them very finely balancing the ability to be consistent and yet
Literally
still
stack
have
the
surprise.
deck, but
Literally
still have
stack the
surprise,
deck.
and that's what I wrote here, right? So, it's the idea that I can stack the deck and create an 80% chance that this is going to happen, and there's a 19% chance that it's not going to work, but there's a 1% chance that it's going to not work so abysmally. But I know that, and my job is to get to that point where that chance is so low that and when it happens, you're like, damn, it's so unlucky. But you understand that works. In this game, it's more like it doesn't even feel lucky or unlucky because it's happening every other swing of the axe.
It's almost like, all right, well, now I have to account for the hearts I'm going to lose because I'm not going
Which
to
I
avoid
did. So whenever I was in the mine, I never let my hearts go below like 8.
Yep.
Because you also have pitfalls in the mine that you can find without actually axing into them. So if you're just walking around the mine, you might just fall through several levels because there was a hole that was underneath the skin of the mine.
Yes. Now, in their fairness, they give you a radar detector that lets you detect pit holes.
No, that's to detect places to mine.
No, it also detects the pit holes.
How?
It's the same.
Yeah,
You
that's
don't
what
know
I'm
if
saying.
it's a place to mine or a pit hole.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And because your walking is not set to a grid pattern,
But everything is in the grid. So the ground is in a grid pattern, but you walk not in the grid pattern.
So when you turn and your guy actually makes too large of a turn and goes through this thing that could be a gem or a hole, oops, it was a hole, and you lose a heart.
Yeah. Or sometimes you fall one floor and you lose a heart. Sometimes I fell once like 7 floors and I lost like 5 hearts and I died. And I was like, it's like 2 p.m. I was like, how much did I fall?
And
Like,
that's not even getting into the RNG of like finding the minerals you need, which is also completely random,
Completely
with
random.
no way to increase it. So you're like, gosh, I hope that on the 7th fall, after wasting this much time with rocks, I maybe stumble across the gold that I need, not because I need gold to build something on my farm or upgrade. That would be original hard
because someone wants
Because
gold.
Jenny asked for a lump of gold because she needs it for
But the
reasons.
thing also is, it's like usually. So they say like the deeper you go in the mine, the rarer the ore, and it's true.
Generally speaking.
But it's still like super random number generate right? So, for example, I have a quote about this as well. Actually,
Phil did his
So-
research.
I did. So this is from Ladies Gamers from Yvonne Van Geloven. I hope I said that right.
I like that.
So the problem. So one of the early quests, you have to find silver to build your barn.
Yes.
Right. And that quest is one of the game hinges on because not only you build your barn, but you can now move around the world
Yeah.
and you can fast travel because of this.
Right.
So you really need silver. But
Did you ever build a barn?
No, I didn't
So
get
he
that.
you have to
Yeah.
get silver only shows up after floor 11 of the first mine.
Right.
And because you're early in the game, you have like 3 hearts and the days are like fast. She says here, it took me many days to do so, and the main reason was that there just aren't enough hours in the day, right, to get on floor 20, where silver is. And eventually she did it by stalking apples for days.
Yes.
Right. And she says here at the end, however, the mine floors change every time you enter, so you might have more luck than I had. As a positive, and I would argue that's a negative.
Right.
Because yes, I think luck should play a role. So like maybe you find silver in 20, maybe you find silver in 23.
It should
right?
lead to excitement,
And not maybe you find silver in 20, maybe you find silver in 71. Like that's not
tedium.
because I there was one thing that you have to find at the end, which is like the moonstone.
Right.
I only started finding moonstone reliably at level 71 of a mine, and the mine has 80 levels.
Yep.
And that took me like many days to get to 71, and many days of planning, right?
You know, guys, this seems like the kind of game I would design if I were intentionally trying to troll people.
Yeah, well, it's an
Not trying
inconvenience.
to troll,
Yeah, it's
trying to make the game longer. And this is not the only way the game does this. So it does this in mining.
Fetch quests.
But fetch quests, right? So a fetch quest is a quest in a video game where a player asks you to get an item, not caring
It's
or
Death
mattering
Stranding.
what the item was, and you're supposed to
Starfire.
walk and get it and then come back, right? So this is very like typical for really early term MMOs, like World of Warcraft back in the 2000s, EverQuest back in the 2000s. And that was because they were trying to really create this world. And they needed these quests, but they couldn't program like complex story or graphics in because the world was huge and it had to be an MMO. They were already doing a ton of work to get it related to each other. So the earliest quests in World of Warcraft were stuff like, go get 3 sticks, bring back 3 sticks, right? That is all this game is. We're not
Literally.
building toward any goals. All of the quests
it's
is...
not farming.
It's not farming.
It's mining and fetch questing.
Yeah,
That's what you need to progress.
you're not farming to farm. You're farming, or to make money, you're farming to fetch things.
Yes.
And sometimes you fetch things from your farm. More often you fetch things from the mines or from a random tree or a mushroom somewhere in the world.
And there are so many quests. Like, you get letters and people come to you and like, hey, like often I would stop by to say like, hey, how are you doing? And they have the same dialogue, but then they'd be like, also, by the way, could you bring me 6 oranges? And none of this makes sense because sometimes they'll be like, man, I really need to fix my house. Could you bring me 5 wheat? And I'm like, how is that?
They didn't even tie it to the story. Or like Judy asks for new fertilizer every like time you talk to her. She's like, I need 10 new fertilizer. I need 10 new fertilizer. She runs a barn.
Yes.
She doesn't have a farm, and her barn produces fertilizer. And so you're like, why am I... None of this was considered or made sense. It's just to extend the length of time so that I have to run over here, get stuff, and then run back.
It's an easy item you can get early in the game, and she's an early character. It's not technically
Therefore, it's there. And the same is true with Doc. So Doc's main goal is that Doc converts minerals, lumps of iron, silver, gold, into blocks of silver, iron, and gold. And so characters will not ask for the minerals. They will ask for the blocks. So that you have to mine the minerals in lumps, bring it to Doc to have Doc pay him, but less than it's worth. So it's just an arbitrary amount so that they will convert it to a block. So that then you can give that block to the character so that then they can restore a Doc, which is not needed for the restoration. There's no... They didn't program any, like, bronze epithets on the edge of the Doc.
It's all wood.
It's all wood.
Yeah.
They've just decided, like, this is the thing you need. And then the map is the same way. So the map of this entire world...
We'll get to the
we
map
haven't
here in a
got the
second.
map. All right.
So let's continue with the fetch quest thing. So I have here some quotes as well. So this is, again, from Video Chums, Mary Billington. There's an endless list of quests to complete. I was a bit disappointed by how many people wanted the same things, like wood and stone, right? Or like a specific... Or fertilizer.
Fertilizer.
They always ask for the same things. And there's like... There's a joke I saw a lot of stuff on Reddit about this as well, and one of the people were talking about like, I don't understand. There's a side character in Lechtenberg, the first town, she's a kid, and all she asks for is like iron, and she asks for, it's like Judy, she asks for like 3 iron every time you talk to her. And someone's like, what is she building, a tank? Because you can bring her like hundreds of iron throughout the game and she's still asking for iron.
That's what I was thinking with the fertilizer. It's like, well, what else are you going to be using fertilizer for?
Yeah.
She's the Oklahoma City Bomb.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah. And then, so one thing that Mary Billington wrote here that I also think bugged me a lot is that you can't access your inventory from anywhere, from outside. So if you want to, let's say you need, I don't know, 10 wood, 10 stone, and 10 iron for a quest, and you get them all at different periods of times and different days.
Right.
Sure.
The game doesn't tell you, like, hey, you got all the materials you need, go bring them to this person. You have to actively go to your own inventory at home, which means you have to fast travel home to check what you have. And sometimes I had, like, I already had 6 of this. Right? Because, and this is a choice the developers made, because when you're cooking, you can access your literal inventory, I think they call it your drawer, from the oven. So when you're cooking, it's like, do you want to cook using the 6 you have on hand, or the 15 you have in the drawer? And
so
I was
they
like,
knew.
oh. So they know exactly.
It's
like
possible.
They chose here to make you not be able, because even if they couldn't, you could see like, oh, I already have 10, I got to go back and grab it.
Right.
That's great. But sometimes you went back to check, you didn't have it, so you just wasted time.
Because that's the goal of the game.
Yes.
The goal of the game is to lengthen your playtime as much as humanly possible.
So when you're cooking, you can access the stuff you have in your drawer. when you're crafting, also in your house,
Right.
you have to bring the stuff physically with you
For some reason.
for some reason.
Yeah,
Right?
and here's the thing. So MMOs did this in the early 2000s, and they did it because that they were trying to program simple things, and they were trying to lengthen the game. But MMOs, to their credit, had a reason to lengthen the game because most of those MMOs were operating on a monthly subscription, where if
And a level basis.
and a level basis,
Yeah.
where if I got you playing the game longer, you literally paid me more because you were paying $14 a month for your WoW membership.
And
We're
it's
not
also-
doing this here.
It's how games, like, that's the evolution of games, right? So
Right.
this is, and we're going to get to this, a couple of these things feel old.
So dated.
Dated, that's the word.
Yeah.
So a couple of asinine quests that I noted here, but before we get to that, I want to talk about from Nintendo Life. This is Kate Grace, which she said about quests. Quests keep requiring obscure items like platinum and high quality lumber. By the way, you cannot make high quality lumber at home unless you upgrade your house a lot.
Yep.
Right? Without telling you how or where or even when to find these.
Yep.
Because some of these items you can't get to unless it's winter and a pond freezes over and you have to get to the other side of that pond. And you have to wait till winter to do that.
Yes.
Right? So, for example, one of the last quests you get is like getting 10 moonstone, which again I only found at like the last levels of a mine. 5 platinum and titanium, which is super RNG
And they're only in
reliant.
particular mines, and they don't tell you they're in those mines,
No,
so
they
you have to
don't.
look it up.
You have to look it up. No one tells you like, oh, I think this place has this time of ore. You have
There's
to
no
figure
hints.
it out.
Like, if you had to play this game in 2001 without any internet,
It would take you a long time.
you would not beat
Yeah.
this game. Yeah.
The crop mutations, they don't tell you how to like get those, right? You have to like fertilize and hope for the best.
Or what they're necessarily good for. And then the mutated crops, which
And
I did
it's
think...
RNG again too, because you fertilize and you just get a better chance of it mutating, not actually a guarantee.
And then most of the quests... I kind of expected that late game, all of the quests would be around those mutated crops. Because it seems like it's a farming sim.
Yeah.
The goal is to make a farm that
It's
could
right
grow
right
all
there.
kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Nope, just more mining. I think there was one quest that revolved around a mutated crop, and even then
Yeah.
you can get seeds for pre-mutated crops. And so then you just use those pre-mutated crop seeds, and then you didn't have to use the regular mutated crop seeds. It's just an endless amount of meaningless fetch quests.
And even whenever they tie to the story, it's a little confusing because, for example, to the last quest, okay, so the last quest is you have to bring oasis water to the goddess spring.
Yes.
And fun fact, the second to last quest is also you have to bring oasis water to the goddess spring. And once you do the second to last quest, you're like, okay, cool, and this has worked out because I already had the oasis and stuff, so I could just fast travel, which is fine. But like once you get to that point, you can go to the last quest of the game, which you don't know yet, but you have to bring like 10 moonstones, which is hard to find, right? And all the ores look the same. Okay.
Titanium.
Not getting to mine again. Titanium at this point was easy to find because
And we forgot that like the geodes that are sticking out of the ground are
Look
just
exactly
like
the same.
silver or gold
or green,
and that could be the gold ones could be bronze or gold or topaz, and they use the same character.
Yes.
You didn't even play this far, and are you just getting annoyed with?
So yeah. Anyway, when we fix the first oasis and we get the goddess has more power, so the bridge is she creates a glass bridge kind of to ionized
light
bridge, and you get like, oh no, the big goddess spring is also dry. Oh gee, what are we gonna do? And they're all like, oh my god, all hope is lost. I don't know what we're gonna do. And I'm just thinking like, so we need a different, so we can't just use oasis water?
Why can't we just
I was
keep
thinking
going
this,
back and forth?
right?
3 trips.
And someone was like, oh wait, what if we bring oasis water? And Doc is like, yeah, I have a container for that made already. And you're like, yeah, because I just used that for the last one.
Literally 3 seconds
3 seconds ago. And this whole time I was like, I just literally did this yesterday. And apparently...
But remember, 10 years is into mythology.
True. And apparently, the inhabitants of that town that have the goddess spring, they do a pilgrimage for oasis water monthly. What happened? Why are we acting like all hope is lost? Like, I get that if we like, oh, we need more oasis water, let's go get it. And then you get there and they're like, oh wait, the water isn't powerful enough.
Here's my theory. My theory is that the entire game, with all the fetch quests and nonsense, was programmed first. And then somebody was like,
Harvest Moon skin.
Here's a Harvest Moon skin, and we need you to write a story for this. And he's like, oh, can I change some of these things? They're like, you can change none of the elements. You just have to talk about how we move from a quest with one water decanter to a quest with another water decanter with no in between.
Yeah.
I think it was. I think
And
the
that's
story
why I
was
think
coded
like
on second.
sometimes they expect you to come back like a week, days, months later because
Yeah.
like I just wanted to be like because I thought that meant like oh we have to get something else. It's not going to be Oasis water. It's going to be like volcano lava,
new thing, yeah.
or something.
Nope.
It was Oasis water. And then when you get there, it makes sense because she's like oh wait the water isn't powerful enough. We have to wait for the full moon, so they lock you out of something. But it would have made a lot more sense if you had gone there. Like, oh, we need more water. Oh, wait, we can't use this water yet.
But then the thing that they locked you out with, they were like, oh, it needs the full moon to charge it, which is another. You just have to wait an extra 6 days, and then they come to your house and get you. And
yeah.
they're like, yep, the full moon charged it. And you're like, so there was no skill involved here.
No.
The skill was, can you wait?
Another,
another 6
however
days.
long until the next full moon. And I was like, I don't know how long it's going to be. The moon looks... I hope the moon is going up.
Like, that's not
Yeah.
a game, that's a line at Disney
Filling
World.
up. Yeah.
That's what we're experiencing here.
So, what made fetching and back and forth also frustrating with the exploration mechanics, we talked about, like, there's conflicting mechanics here, contradictory mechanics.
Right.
But the actual map layout is
also
exhausting.
made to do this.
So the map layout is, and this is from a Reddit user, the best description I can give for the map layout is imagine a maze in the back of a cereal box from like 2005.
Yep.
That's what the map is like.
And
It
there's
is a
no
maze.
flying, and there's no climbing cliffs.
Or ledges.
Because I went back to
There's no ledge. There's no ledge stepping.
I went back to Pokemon after we played this game, which admittedly we were a little rough on the first time.
You don't have to go anywhere.
I loved the fact that I could climb a cliff, man. It was like a real treat after playing.
Or
this
like
movie.
even stepping over a ledge. Like in this game, the way they lock you out of locations is they have little one pixel high ledges
invisible
that
barriers.
you can't step over because you can't. Even though your step is physically higher than that, you can't get over that ledge.
Right.
So you have to go around. And there's a couple of areas in the map that I couldn't get into because I thought they were locked. They were not. They were just such mazes.
You had to walk
get
all the way
to.
around to the north, and then back down to the
Yes.
south, and then reroute through here, and then you'd be able to pass.
I
through.
only figured that out because I pulled up a map on my iPad and literally maze drew like a line where I had to go with my character and then follow that in the game.
Which again
Right.
might have been cool, maybe, in a world where at the end of said maze there was a reward, a super rare,
There's no reward, just unlocking that area of the map.
and that area of the map just has also apples and cherries and
Yeah.
walnuts. There's no benefit for
So
doing
here's
this.
from Nintendo Life, Kate Gray again about the ledges. Not being able to walk over small ledges is an outdated design decision. Dated.
Okay, great.
Most of the map exploration will revolve around trying to find the on-ramp to a bit of land without the map. Because you can't unlock the map without first entering that area. Right? And once you get to the volcano area, you'll curse whoever came up with the idea of building a maze that's darker than the inside of your eyelids and twister than the pirouetting flump, which is that marshmallow candy that like twists on itself.
And
there's no map.
they don't do layered map.
Nope.
So it's
So
a
when
map
you
of
walk
the
into the
first level of the volcano, but the volcano is 4 floors and it twists back up.
Brendan, let me ask you something. What's worse than a mapless? What's worse than a bad map?
No map.
No map.
Yep.
Yes. It's when you enter an area, and I was like, all of a sudden I'm going. If you look at the map, you're like in the middle of the lava, and I'm like, what?
How am I
It's
in the
'cause
middle
you're
of
below
lava?
or above it.
The lava.
And there's no
God.
3D-ization of that map.
They didn't like cut it into layers or segment it.
So even though I like unlocked all the volcano areas, I literally didn't know how to get to from one place to another because
Yep.
it's like the inside is literally
doubles back on itself.
Doubles back on itself, and the signs say like north to this, and the sign and the path goes north for like 3 steps and then turns south.
To get to the final volcano mine, which I had to look up online,
Yep.
you have to walk through the volcano, go around that maze for a good long while. Then it
Oh, by
lets
the way,
you
the
out.
volcano is giving you damage.
Oh yeah, it hurts you every second you're in it.
Yeah.
So you have to you have to bring like 20 apples and just be like,
Yeah, that's
Oh,
why
yeah,
I
you
had
can already do
coconut. I had
volcano.
coconut milk, which gives all the juices give you cooling
Cooling
effects. So that's
effects.
why I only grew tomatoes and watermelons.
which would be fun if you could figure out what things to grow, but that's random too. So you never know if you're gonna really have enough watermelons. So you walk your way all the way through the volcano, and then you have to go back outside
Yes.
onto the beach, walk across the beach, and go back up into another secret cave. And you're like, how would anybody know? Because
also-
it looks like you're leaving the volcano. You're like, oh man, I got turned around. I'm heading back outside. Nope, that was the right outside exit.
And
Turns
also,
around.
not only that, but like that takes like 4 hours
Oh yeah.
in the game, and you can't sprint because you're depleting hearts.
Yep.
So a lot of times you'll make it to the area and be like, oh, I guess that was the outside. I'm going to try again tomorrow in a different way.
But Phil, what about a creature that you could ride in the volcano? Where do you find that?
Oh, you find that after you finish the third town at the very top of the volcano behind a wall.
So even
Which
if
is
you're
very
like,
hard to get
well, you
to.
could do it faster because we have this mechanic to help mitigate the RNG.
Yes. Which is...
That mechanic's after you've already beaten the volcano. Yeah.
The mechanic of helping you navigate the volcano only comes after you've navigated the volcano enough that you don't need to anymore.
Yep.
And what's that mechanic?
A raptor.
It is a blue velociraptor that you can ride. Like as if you ride a horse or I'm going to say zebra because that's normal in this game.
But horses slow to like crawl slower than walking when you enter the volcano because they're hurting and they're in pain,
Yeah,
and the
so
raptor can run the volcano.
Horses slow down for any weather. So do zebras.
Camels
can run in the desert.
Yep.
And then a reindeer can run in the cold, and raptors can run in anything.
Yep.
Because
Which is great,
science.
but by the time you
Why
find the
not?
raptor, you've got the fast travel for the mine and the raptor locations, so you can just fast travel.
it helps you run the map faster and also get caught in a bunch of like ledges and glitches. But it isn't necessary. It's nice.
It exists.
It would have been much better if it was like close to the entrance of the volcano.
So you run around a bunch to find the thing, then you get the thing milled by Doc, then you
Yep.
bring the thing back to the person, and then at the end of all of this fetch quest nonsense,
That you have to like maze around.
that you have to maze around to do, they don't give you anything worthwhile. So you will trade 3 gold, and in exchange, she will give you like 2 eggs that you already had eggs for.
Yeah.
And then you'll go to the person that needs 2 eggs, and you'll give it to him, and he'll give you like half a blade of grass.
Yeah.
And so not only are they non-rewarding narratively, but they're non-rewarding in
Yeah.
money terms or monetary terms, and so there's no reason to do the extra side fetch quests outside of, I want to upgrade my village's happiness rating arbitrarily.
Yeah, exactly. And
That's
we
it.
talked a little bit about like how these quests work in my first rate. It's also the stamina a little bit. I just wanted to give you a couple quotes here. So looking at player communities, this is from Mary Billington and Vito Chums. A lot of folks are hoarding fruit from wild trees and overloading them on them throughout the day because that's the only way you can do anything remotely taxing.
Yep.
And then from Ladies Gamers, Yvonne von Geloven, you don't have a lot of stamina, and replenishing it during the day can be done by eating meals, but meals cost so much, and you like to buy, right? And you have no earnings at that point in the game.
Even when you have earnings,
Yeah.
like, it's never efficient.
No.
Like, you...
The only efficient way to use meals is by making tomatoes and watermelons.
Maybe.
It is the only way, because you transform them from being half a heart to automatically being worth double that, 2 hearts, and they have a cooling effect. So if you have 50 tomatoes, which is 25 hearts, is not a lot, right? You also have 50 hearts, which is easily enough to get through a day of mining.
And they did, like, realistic economics for the diner, which doesn't make any sense. So, like, if you grow a tomato and you turn it into tomato juice, you can sell that tomato juice for 100. The diner then charges 200 for tomato juice, or sometimes 300 for tomato juice. And so there's never, and the problem is that it's the same tomato juice, so there's never any incentive, because you don't make enough money to really spend a lot of time eating at a diner.
No. The only thing I ever bought at the diner, at the restaurant, was in the Lilikala, which is the, like, beach town.
Yeah.
They sell small grilled fish, which is 1 heart for 180.
That's
And
pretty good.
That's the best deal in the game, easily, hands down.
Yeah.
And I would go in there once I was mining a lot, and I would buy like 100, basically.
It's just like so much of this game, even not considering from a programming perspective, is so easily fixable.
That's the thing. Yeah,
By
you
just
could fix
considering
the ledge thing by giving us a jump button that's even because that would fix your mazing by like 50%, which with a 2-pixel jump, and that's easy enough.
But they don't want to fix the mazing, because the
No.
mazing is intentional. It creates the game. And it's the same with the food in the diners. It's like, if you made food that you grow on your farm give 3 times the hearts of food that you buy from the diner, and then you made the diner cheaper, now it gives a real incentive to farming.
Yeah.
But we don't care about incentivizing farming. We care about incentivizing length of time spent on this game.
Yeah. So anyway, we agreed with all that. We have 2 points of praise for this game. I mean, some other stuff is nice. So, like the open world is pretty.
It's a
and
pretty
the characters look nice, except for Doc's weird apalm smile.
Yep.
But for NPCs and merits, so the Bachelor and Bachelorettes, the eligible singles in this game, they're well designed and they all have unique characteristics. And some of them are like, really outwardly like anime-ish, like Judy and Aolani, who are like, I love animals / I love fishing, and that's my entire personality.
Yep.
Right, which is fine. And sometimes you have more nuance, like Neil, who like is a cook because his dad disappeared for 10 years, but he doesn't like cooking. He likes eating more, right? So that's kind of, you have to like, you develop that with him. And then Vivi or Vivi in Providence, who's a researcher.
Right.
And she's like, could you bring me 3 of this thing because I want to research this property? She's like, that makes sense. I will do that.
I think I very much think that they planned the town of Providence first.
It is the best. It makes the most sense.
It makes the most sense. It's laid out well. Also, I will say that the end farm, the goddess farm, is about the exact location from Providence that most of the Harvest Moon farms were in previous Harvest Moons. I think there's a chance that they designed Providence, made this, and then the producer guy came in and was like, no, you know what's cool? Breath of the Wild. We're making Breath of the Wild. Go. And they're like, oh, we're going to have to program 6 more cities. And he's like, yeah, do it. That's what happened. But I think there's a chance that Providence was the original because of the people in Providence, the restaurants, and the layout of the town feels more
Providence is the
real.
big town. Is the biggest town.
It's the biggest town.
Yeah. So if you read the character descriptions also, which I mean, they're kind of out of the way, but they update the more you interact with them. So it gives you a reward there, right? So the more I talk to them, even if I don't want to marry them, I learn more about them as I go through.
Classic dating sim.
Which is cool. And also the marriage. So in Winds of Anthos, it's the first time, from my understanding, that you can marry anyone, no matter who you are. So if you have a female presenting main character, you can marry the bachelors and bachelorettes, and same for male presenting main.
That's
character,
cool.
Right?
We like
no
that
gender
progressive.
attached to this kind of stuff.
We like that.
And I think it's really cool that you can do this.
Yeah.
Secondly, I would say the menu is kind of clunky, but the map search function is extremely helpful when you get to use it.
It is nice.
So it's also, so you can any wisp or any crop that you found, not counting fruits on trees for some reason, or any animals you found, you can then pin on the map. And like you click Y on the map, and then you can see like.
So
if
look
you're
for
looking
tigers.
Tomatoes, yeah. You can find all the tomatoes in the game and go get them.
Yep.
Right, which is nice instead of running around. So
Which is
this
necessary because you can't buy them in stores.
Exactly. So this was a cool way to reward exploration, I think, because sometimes, like a character would ask you, like, I want you to bring me this one kind of rare crop, and if you have explored the world gratuitously at this point, you might have already come across it.
Right.
So you can pin it on your map and go look for it.
Made the fetch quests easier.
It did, yes. So we're going to get here into our Roselia, Ferrothorn, and Badu after the praise section. I will go first here. So the Roselia have of this game, right? So Rose, but Thorn, good, bad, and improvement things. So Roselia, the good. The lulls in this game that allowed me to get lost in farming, which was me actually playing Harvest Moon when I didn't have a outward goal, just an inward goal of, I want to make this a better farm.
Do you think there's a chance that you might actually like a Harvest Moon game?
Yeah, that was when I was like, this is enjoyable because I'm like finding seeds. I want to grow this as efficiently as possible. I'm using different kinds of fertilizer because I want to grow more.
Right.
And then I got reminded like, oh yeah, I'm doing this because I have to go to the mine for 17 hours tomorrow. So it feels like a min-max farming game otherwise because you're always trying to like only grow the things that are efficiently going to help you mine.
Right.
Mm-hmm. For Ferrothorn, again, this is not a farming game. It's not, and it doesn't need to be an open world game. We don't need the time it takes for me to. If you're gonna have war points everywhere like they do, which I think is nice,
yep.
You don't need to make it open world. Just give me a load. We have load screens anyway.
Give the locations.
It's fine.
Yep.
So make it a smaller world.
And you
right?
certainly weren't advanced enough in the other aspects of your game for me to complain that load screens were dated.
Yeah.
Like there's so many other things that are dated in this game.
Yeah.
The load screens are not impacting this.
It then feels like the world isn't empty, but it feels like it because then you create the space where it's like it's Legends of Arceus without the Pokemon running around.
There's no Pokemon.
And it's Breath of the Wild without enemies running around. So it's just a world. It's just a space.
If you like Pokemon without the Pokemon, this is a game for you.
And my Badu is the exploration, which was fun and but the map is crazy. The bridges, some of the bridges are ridiculous. Like one of the bridges you need to bring like 30 gold.
Yeah.
And another bridge is like bringing 5 desert cactus, and I was like, why would that even be a part of a bridge?
Yep.
And then the ledges are ridiculous. The fact that you have if we had a jump button and the jump was literally like a hop, that would change the game, I think.
Yep.
So my score for this game is a 5 out of 10, which is bang in the middle. I did not have fun. I would not play it again, which is what we discussed. Like anything below 6 is you would not play again.
Yep.
And I did not have fun except for in the lulls when I have my own objective, which was to not have an objective except for bettering my farm, until I remembered that my true objective was to mine for 17 hours the next day.
Yes.
Brendan, I know you didn't play much. What do you got?
Yeah, I didn't feel like I could really score the game, so I didn't assign it a number, though. From what I played, the number
Fair.
would have not been extremely high. I don't actually remember what I actually put. So, I did say that there is something weirdly fun about growing the digital crops. There's, I felt like Thanos after Baldur's
Ooh,
Gate
that's good,
3,
yeah.
because I'm just... I'm content retiring on my farm. But then I have to, go mine and do all this other stupid stuff. And then so I didn't actually get to stay on my farm, so I'm like...
Yeah, like Thor showed up. And just,
Right?
Yeah,
like, jerk.
That would have been better.
Yeah, you ruined all my crops. Ferrothorn... So much of this game is just like a walking simulator, as we've talked about it.
Yeah, and I think the issue is that it's a walking simulator with very, very, very limited stamina. Because I've played couple of really cool walking simulators where the more you explore, the more it builds up tension and story. In this game, it's the more you explore, the less hearts you have.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I hear good things about Firewatch. We haven't played
Firewatch
that
is
one, but-
amazing, yeah.
Right, so there are ways to do a walking simulator, like if there's a really good story, which this game does not have. And then... Badoo, I said that the exploration really needs to feel more rewarding.
Yeah.
Because right now it just doesn't. And I'll be honest, I don't know how you make exploration rewarding in a Harvest Moon
I don't know
game.
if you, I don't know if you
I might
need
use.
to. That's the thing.
But if it's
We'll
going to
get to
be
that.
there needs to be something tied to it. I want to find out that the Scarecrow King is raising an army outside the town, and I need to get the mice to unite to go fight him.
Nope.
And in order to do that, I need to grow more food to feed to the mice.
I don't necessarily need. I see what you're saying. I think yes. And
That's an adventure game.
Or something like once you unlock all the all the harvest goddess statues, she gets even more power.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
once you open up all the map, you get to grow specific crops. There's nothing tied to it except for find more wisps.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, John. What do you got?
So I think to be really nice to the game and say one of the things that I really enjoyed about the game was the sky.
The sky was beautiful,
sky was
especially with
beautiful.
the meteor showers.
The meteor showers on the beach in Lilicala really did almost take my breath away the first time I saw
I
them.
took screenshots. Yeah.
They're great. I really, really enjoyed them. I thought the sky was really well done, and I liked it.
The game has a nice skin on it.
Has a
which is
nice
weird thing to say. But
ambiance.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, I will say that I encountered no glitches that I know
a few
of.
glitches.
Okay, so I will say that I maybe was lucky, but I thought it was a clean game.
Did you never get stuck behind your animals in the barn?
No.
I got stuck behind. I lost 3 hours once, just stuck behind the cow. Because you can't push them.
All right.
And I waited. I had to wait for my raptor to walk around and come and collision bump into the cow so that I could then collision myself free. And I also had a hard crash.
So we retract that.
Yeah.
Fair enough. The sky was nice.
The sky was nice.
Sky was nice.
It's a good looking game, I think.
It's a good looking game.
Yeah.
Ferrothorn is got to be the story. That story is unredeemable, and at some point, somebody's got to come back and be and I mean that both in the macro story with the goddess that make behind these walls that makes no sense, and also the micro story of these fetch quests aren't related to anything.
No. Bring me 7 weeks so I can rebuild my roof. I was like, that's not how roofs
That's not how roofs work, and even when you rebuild it, it's not thatched. You somehow made it out of wood.
Yeah.
So why can't I bring whatever? The story is irredeemable. They would need a complete overhaul. I don't care about story that much in a Harvest Moon game, so it's a minor quality to be irredeemable, but it is irredeemable. And my Badoo is all right, I'm gonna try to get into the producer's mindset and be we want to make an open world adventure style Harvest Moon game. How would we do this? I do think there is something to the multiple farms in different locations.
Yeah, that was nice.
Right? So, I'm gonna go way back. In the 1990s, early 2000s, there's a game called Zoo Tycoon. And the general version of the zoo is you build your own zoo, you have fun with it. But there was a storyline where you walked in, took over old zoos, and made them redeemable and habitable again. Right? I think there's a version of this game with load screens or different areas where the goal is to run a farm in Lilicala, completely get the farm up and running and good, and then getting hired to do the same thing in another village.
That actually is that's a better game already.
It's a better game already, right? And then you move to the different villages, and in those villages, you can only grow and find certain crops from the stores. They only sell local produce, so you have to learn like the intricacies of each plant and animal in that area. So like in Lilicala, you have cows and chickens. When you move out to the beach, cows are going to die there. So you have to start learning how to do like crab traps and lobster fishing. And you're like macro managing these farms with some upgrades between each.
You can yourself hire like, or talk to people and be like, you manage this. So like you can have people like that. You can pay someone to like get your crops from Zimograd, so you don't have to go there every day, basically.
Right, and you don't have to travel. It's not necessarily about the
Farming Tycoon.
Farming Tycoon. I think there is a version of Harvest Moon where we do have multiple locations and moving that is still based around the core of Harvest Moon, which is like farming and upgrading your farm.
Yes, and in that way you're still helping the harvest goddess because you're making more areas better.
More areas fertile, right?
Yes.
We have to restore energy to this, and especially if you were like, all right, we do need to restore this town's economy. And you could tag it to a really unspecific number and be like, this town needs a total of 2 million things traded in this period. Trade what you like.
This other town needs at least 150 animals living in
animals
town.
bred, right?
Yeah.
And the old Harvest Moons used to have this really nice mechanic that I loved where the Harvest Wisps, what they were, is like they were basically achievements. After you did a certain amount of things, I bred 10 cows, you would get a cow Harvest Wisp. And that cow Harvest Wisp would then milk your cows every day and put the milk in a pre-designated spot.
That's nice.
It was great, and I'm like, why the frick did you lose that mechanic? Because it was amazing.
That sounds nice.
And so I think there is something to multiple farms. This is not it.
This is not it, but I do like, and that's also nice because like the multiple farms are in biomes.
Yes.
So you can choose to wait for a winter, or you can go grow something in Zimograd, for example, right? Which is the winter town.
And I would love it if like like in the old Harvest Moon games, outside of winter, you physically couldn't grow corn, which would give you reasons to like have to unlock those areas and farm there and work with there. Natsume, cut me a check. I'm here for game design advice.
What is it? Consultation.
Consultation.
Professor's play fee. Let us know. So in closing today, so we talked about this game, Harvest Moon: Winds of Anthos. It is not a farming simulator. If you're expecting that, don't. It is a social sim adventure game that can be like relaxed if you don't pay attention to the time or the stamina, or because it did remove like the consequences of running out of stamina or time. There's none.
There's none.
Right.
So why are they there?
So we can look at it that way, or we can say like it can be really relaxed, right? Because you don't have a time. You don't have to complete this by any time, and if you pass out, you pass out, right? There are issues with the map and quests. These aren't game breaking. You can ignore most of them except for the main ones. And honestly, you can ignore them forever and just farm.
Yep. You can just play this game as a farming sim if you want. It just wouldn't progress the game.
And it's not the best farming simulator, but you can.
Right.
However, the farming is not ultimately what it's set out to do, we don't think. Right? And for anyone expecting a farming simulator, you'll be disappointed. The lack of polish with the contradictory exploration, mining, and stamina time mechanics. It's a frustrating experience. The rocks falling when you mine. The glitches I didn't mention, I kind of mentioned, so hard crashes that happened a couple times to me. I clipped and glitched through a bunch of stuff with the Raptor. Not on purpose, but like it happened. Getting stuck behind cows. So the official Professor's Play recommendation is for full price, don't play this.
This is a 4 out of 10. A solid 4 out of 10.
Yeah, so John gave it a 4 out of 10. I gave it a 5. Brandon didn't score it because he didn't want to play it as much as that speaks for itself, kind of. So unless you are a hardcore fan of the Harvest Moon franchise, and I don't mean this as in like the ones from the 90s. I mean you've played the ones from 2014 and 2017, and you want to play this one, sure. I would still wait for a sale, though.
Wait for a sale.
If you like the sort of gameplay loop that comes with this sort of games, like farming and the day-night cycle and finding animals, because the animals are cute and all that kind of stuff, you want to explore an open world without having to worry about bokoblins coming at you, sure. Again, this game is going to be on sale. It's already $40 now. It was $60 when we bought it. It's going to be inevitably $15 or $20. At that point, you should pull the trigger.
Sure.
Or you have the game laying around right now, which I'm not playing anymore, and my girlfriend wants to play it, so you should definitely give it a shot.
Give it a shot.
And I'll give you some pointers to make it a less frustrating experience. But I'm happy to say we have reached the end of our Harvest Moon series. Sad to say, though, that we've reached the end of the Professor's Play episodes for this semester and year. But rest assured, dear listener, parentheses S, We will be back in 2024, as we have said before. 1,000 years, Professors Play.
We're going forever.
Yeah. So anyway, we'd like to thank you all of you that watch or listen and engage. We have over 1,100 views and listens on all our platforms, which is awesome.
That's amazing.
Right?
That's
So
great.
thank you very much.
We like
for
you
your
guys.
continued support. We love you guys. It's why we do this. I would urge you. I do have a challenge though, so don't be afraid to like comment and like challenge us on stuff because we are happy to like address it on the next
We will
episode
talk.
and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
We will talk.
We like
Yeah,
talking.
we like to talk. So we will enter a small hiatus for the winter holidays, but we'll come back in about a month or so, hopefully, with our first series for the year, which will be Super Mario Wonder.
Oh, I'm so excited to play a Mario
The
game.
new 2D Mario game, the first new 2D Mario game in a while, hopefully with a guest. We'll figure that out. Until then, I'm Professor Phil Chavot, he's Professor Brennan West, and he's Professor John Adams, and together we're professors who play video games. Happy holidays, and we'll see y'all next year.
Thank you.
We didn't get into the Leninist critique of